and welcome to this week's Threat Intel Weekly presented by Volta. My name is Josh Bacon, a security engineer here at Volta. I'm presented here with Jeff Jarecki, our CISO, Tracy Whitlock, another security engineer, and Michael Gay, another security engineer. Today, we're going to be walking you through the biggest stories in security this week. So starting off, Maui ransomware targeting healthcare. I don't know if anyone here has had any experience with Maui ransomware. Probably not. Maui ransomware is one of the few ransomware families that is completely owned and operated privately. It is never put on the dark web as a ransomware as a service offering, like a lot of, like a proxy login, a lot of the droppers. These are things that you go on, you pay a certain amount to get access to the code base for a little bit, use it for whatever malicious intent you need, and then you don't get updates. You essentially return it like it's a blockbuster. But Maui, this is completely owned and operated by what we believe to be North Korean advanced persistent threat groups, such as APT-21. Those groups, what we're seeing right now currently is that they are exclusively attacking healthcare. This has been multiple over the last month or so, since May 2021, actually. So over more than a year now, but has ramped up a lot recently, are attacking exclusively healthcare organizations. This is another good example of why updating and patching your systems, not that we know the main vector of Maui because it is privately owned and run, but why patching your systems on a very good basis is extremely necessary.
So this one kind of hits near and dear a little bit because so many of my years of my career have been in healthcare. But the title's a little misleading. They're saying that Maui is targeting healthcare. No, North Korea is targeting healthcare. Advanced persistent threats are targeting healthcare. It's not you. Because this has been making its rounds on all the news channels, and they're all saying new or privatized ransomware is targeting healthcare. It's North Korea targeting healthcare, which can't blame them, right? And to your point, while some healthcare institutions or some healthcare entities do have to fall under PCI if they're taking card payments, not all of them do. But the reality is, and this is just from personal experience, if you are completely compliant with PCI or if you are completely compliant with HIPAA, you are still 100% subject to getting hit with a ransomware attack. Compliance with regulatory requirements is critical. It's a mainstay of your business. You have to do that. But the reality is it's not enough. You have to bear in mind the kind of the moat principle of the castle, right? The castle is your critical infrastructure and your systems. All the moats around the castle are your all the controls and all the IDS and IPS and firewalls and all the security systems you put in place. But when you don't train your users, and we're going to talk about a story here in a minute that would help let this in, although it's getting better, it looks like. When you don't train your users appropriately or properly, these systems cannot detect friend from foe. Bad things are able to get in the door no matter how compliant you are with your regulatory requirements. So again, same thing we say every week, super strong call for advanced user training, helping them understand that we never click things in an email, period. Like it just should not be a part of your business process. So
yeah, which is probably the main vector for this. Again, it's privately owned ransomware, so there isn't like a MITRE attack page for it, unfortunately, to where we could go in and see the actual mechanisms of action. But if you had to guess, if I had to put, like my entire career into one bet, I would say would probably be either email or some other form of malicious dropping of attachments. So that's this week in healthcare. If you do run healthcare organization, just understand PCI DSS should be the first moat in your castle. Should be what you should make sure that you have 100% down, and then everything else is where the real security comes in. So PiPi mandating 2FA for maintainers of critical packages. We've talked a couple times about how, for instance, I think the request library instead of requests ended up being basically spyware. The idea was that if you were typo squatting on PyPi packages in order to maliciously drop files onto someone else's computer who is attempting to download a genuine package. So since this, and especially last year with the NPM problems we had, I don't know if anyone remembers that, but there were a problem where several malicious files were getting into very critical NPM packages. So I guess in order to curb that, and the possibility of it, PyPi is now mandating 2FA for the top 1% of projects. So we're only talking about the most critical of the most critical Python projects. However, this is being heavily pushed back against by developers, including one developer who has already deleted his package and then re-uploaded it so it's no longer marked as critical, which I honestly, that's kind of really funny. Because I know that at the end of the day, this is a very critical project, but PyPi is still relying on free labor, as it seems. And when you're relying on free labor, when you're relying on a lot of people to be nice and take care of your infrastructure for you, a lot of the times things like this could happen, which is, if anyone is a bit of a veteran, you'll remember something very similar happening with LeftPad, where essentially an entire project went down because the critical maintainer of a package decided to withdraw his support from it.
I look, I read some of the comments around this. I'm one of the biggest proponents of multi-factor, so like I'm totally in alignment. I think this is a great idea. And to their credit, they were giving the UB keys or whatever hardware key they were going to use for the second factor for free to these developers of the critical projects. So there was no cost. It was just the added thing of, hey, you got to plug a thing in and click an extra. I know it sucks. I know you don't want to do it. I understand why the guy did it, but there was actually some pretty bad fallout because when he blew out his package and then re-uploaded it, all the version history was gone. All the versions were lost, which kind of screwed some people. There's a lot of people bad-mouthing him over it. Listen, the person, I think it's a man, he's doing it for free.
Yep.
Don't push your free labor too much. Look, if you don't want to multi-factor, that's his choice. And if you want to choose to subscribe to what could be risky downloads of Python or code that is not backed by multi-factor, again, that's your choice. But I don't know. There's so much hate on the internet. But the reality is multi-factor is coming. I mean, listen, Salesforce, one of the biggest platforms on the planet, has long since, and I believe they may have implemented it by now. If they haven't, it's coming. They've been for years saying they were going to require any administrative accounts or any high level accounts at any organization to be multi-factor, whether you want to or not. And it's long overdue. That should be happening across the board. It will put a stop to so much nonsense as soon as we can start requiring multi-factor authentication from as many accounts as possible across all the platforms. So
I certainly agree.
I support it, but I get the drama. I understand, like, hey, I'm doing this for free. I don't want this extra thing. I get it, but please.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I think, in my opinion, I would be more willing to partially side with the developers in the sense that I'm not sure if 2FA is the ultimate catch-all for solving these problems. Like, it seems to me the bigger issue, when you have a problem like requests, for instance, let's say the request library somehow managed to get compromised. I almost feel like the bigger problem is having a lot of organizations rely on these packages that are maintained by one person. And then when they go down, inevitably through some reason, whether or not that's, the guy who's maintaining the package gets COVID or something, or, it is genuinely compromised, there is no backup solution to it. Right. It's the beautiful thing about open source is that you can go online and you can find an API for Wikipedia, or you can find an API for the website you're wanting to use, but almost every single time it's being maintained by one guy, and that guy is your single route of hope.
And as soon as that person, that guy, gal, whoever is done, they're done. Like,
done.
And listen, I'll bet you everyone on this call at some point or another is going, you know what? I'm done. I myself just quit 2 passion projects myself. Like, when you're done, you're done. And so, yeah, you're saving a few bucks and maybe you're finding some good code, but you're taking big risks. So you really got to balance that with what are you going to do when this repository goes poof or it stops getting updated.
Entirely. So moving on, Microsoft no longer blocking Office macros by default. I'm so curious why they made this decision. I think if I had to guess, it is because they are getting inundated with less technical people who no longer understand why none of their workflows work. But it seems like that this decision, which was originally made back in April of 2022, in which Microsoft decided to stop allowing these Office macros by default, has been rolled back. And this is now an open vector again.
Well, so let's be clear, because I read, because this article was confusing to me. I had to read it twice to make sure I understood, because what they've done is they had actually blocked it. With that new security alert was like, hey, you can't go here unless you click this link, and then they give you some weird instructions to undo it. Now, mind you, this is for the individual. Bottom line, enterprise level, guaranteed. Business process is going to override this. They're just going to GPO. They're going to load a GPO setting that's going to drop this off a cliff and still allow it, unfortunately. But it is the whole thing was a little confusing the way the thing is written, because it seems to go back and forth on what they were talking about. But whereas before you had to click enable content, which the problem is people get into a mode, they don't even think about it. They open it like, oh, I can't click in the seller. I can't do the thing. So, oh, there's the button. I'll go click this. They don't even think about what that button actually means and what it's saying. So this added step of making a user click this link and then go read how to turn off the setting. And this is the problem. I haven't looked at the instructions yet, but I believe the instructions in that link force the user to make a semi-permanent setting change.
Somewhat,
in
yeah.
which case, if they do, does not invalidate some of the value of this? The whole purpose is to really get people to think before they allow this content. And they're saying, what do they call it? The sign of the web, or the mark of the web, right? If it was downloaded, it automatically is going to fall into this protection and be considered an untrusted source, and therefore not allow the user to do any macros. And listen, back in 1996, I think it was, I got burned by a macro virus that wrecked my whole day.
Was it the I love you letter?
Love bug?
No, I'm not going to tell you what it was. I'll tell you this. This will blow away most of you youngins. It was to get free AOL beyond the 1,000-hour free AOL. Foolish. I mean, I was 16. Give me a break. I clicked this stupid smiley face, and it blew out my TCP/IP stack and corrupted all of my AOL install files. It just destroyed my whole machine. Yo, it was fantastic. Yeah. I don't like to talk about that time.
So Jeff, I want to say, like, with the GUI design here, people have gotten so accustomed to that yellow banner of edit, it's like editing is not enabled. Would you like to enable? And it even says enable. So people just click it. That's where the security risk now. You also have the administration problem, like if they have to make a security setting change on their computer and they don't have admin rights to their machine, then they got to go bug the IT department, and someone has to come in and, change a setting or come visibly see them, some poor help desk dude, and change something. And it's just going to annoy people and the users. It's going to annoy IT, and they're just all going to turn it off. It's just,
this actually isn't a part of this week's stories, but did anyone see that 95% of users agree that, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to find it or not. 95% of users agree that IT problems cause the most problems to productivity and morality. Apparently, whenever all of your computers don't work, no one wants to work. So
let's just contrast that with budget alignment for IT departments. So you're saying that 95% of problems with productivity and meeting thresholds and things needed to get your job done are due to IT. Is 95% of your budget going to IT? No? Okay. We might want to, I'm just saying, like, if we're saying it's that impactful, are we really investing in where the impact is greatest? This is just a question. Please help me. I don't know. Tracy, you made a very good point, though. And here, I'm going to tell you something. I don't care whether it's yellow banner, red banner, whether it's 1-click, 2-click. The bigger this is great for the users, the individuals that are using Office products. It's great for the small companies. The big companies, like I told you, they're just going to GPO it out. It's not even going to matter. And it's going to, the value will be lost on those larger clients and larger customers, because they aren't going to have any they're not going to have any appetite for business interruption. Because I'm telling you right now, you go to work and a data analyst or a statistician or somebody's trying to open a spreadsheet, or they're trying to open up it doesn't matter. And they get this and they can't work in it, it's going to be a major problem. And if you work for a large company that has an IT department, it only takes about 3 tickets of a thing before somebody goes, load it into GPO, disable the thing. We can't do this. And unfortunately, all the value of the security is lost there. So we're training users to click away security. We've been doing that for 15 plus years. Let's hope that the tides roll, the tides change just a little bit, please.
Yeah. And we don't have any young Jeff Jarecki's trying to get more AOL for free.
That's so bad.
That'll ruin your environment. So
it was so bad. I knew better.
This is a story Jeff was very excited to get to this week because Jeff wanted to talk about the importance of finding a good vendor for your products. So
that's right.
I'm sure all of us, if you've gotten into security, just as like a hobby, you figured out that TP-Link routers in general probably aren't the thing you should use as your main. A lot of routers that you could find online, especially like used software on eBay for cheap, a lot of the times, I can't with any authority say this % amount of times, are hardware insecure, either intentionally.
Make it up. Go ahead.
Definitely hardware insecure, either through being unauthentic and not having the hardware security that they are advertised to ship with, or intentionally having these back doors installed into their systems that could also be used for things like botnets. Like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, the Russian proxy service selling access to IoT devices for something like $30 for 9,000 devices. This will be one of them a lot of the times. So what we have here is a CEO of, I'm not sure which company, selling fake hardware to customers under the guise of being a legitimate vendor.
I don't know if you read, so this has been making the rounds this week. I actually read the in-depth article on this. I don't know if you read all the details behind this. This is a fascinating story. This is, listen, there was an executive here in Louisville, the company I used to work for, who got caught selling stolen. He was stealing by the pallets cable modems out of a local company and was selling them on eBay. After upwards of $150,000, $200,000 worth, they caught him. This story blows that out of the water. It's not even close. This guy's getting old, outdated, busted up, non-working, non-functional, and retired Cisco products, and had spun up a supply chain in China where they were not only printing out professional, legitimate Cisco badging to like change the badging of what kind of a switch or a router or whatever it was, but moreover, they were writing custom firmware and like software updates to this thing to make it look legit so that when admins would log in, they would think they were actually interacting with this up-to-date version when really it was old hardware that was just, they had basically ported software to make it appear to be legitimate. This was a many $million-dollar operation that they had running. I forget what it was they said when they caught him, that over the number of years, the NSA or FBI, CIA, somebody was trying to stop him, and they kept seizing. I think they said they seized 7 shipments, high dollar shipments of this fake equipment coming back in from these distributors, these suppliers in China that were basically making it look good. And they were, by the way, custom labeling, custom boxes, packaging, the whole 9 yards, all to sell high-end equipment or low-end equipment at high-end prices that appeared to be high-end equipment. This was fascinating. And what irritates me the most about it is that they knew about it. And even though they tried to stop him, the guy was in America. Like, we can't arrest this person. It's not like he was on the lam running around. Go get him. $1 billion in fake hardware. It's amazing. So the moral of the story, folks, if you don't have an authorized, I know like Cisco shipping times everybody's struggling with that right now with some of the supply chain issues, but listen to me, you're going to feel this desperation. You're going to want to go out and hop on eBay and grab a replacement switch or a replacement router. Don't do it. Don't do it.
If you have done that, I would double check what you have.
Us.
Yeah. Yeah. Please
call an authorized Cisco reseller so you can get legitimate equipment the proper way. Otherwise, what these companies were learning was the other end of the spectrum. They're buying this old, outdated stuff, doesn't have proper cooling fans, it doesn't have the proper processors, so they're running hot, they've got them overclocked, and they're failing in production. That's not Cisco. That's not what you're used to. So don't buy stuff on eBay. Only buy it from trusted sources. Seriously.
Buy once, cry once, as usual. Because if you are getting a 95% discount, I would either argue that it was stolen or someone has figured out alchemy, and we need to track them down. So that's all the stories we have this week. If you or anyone you know needs Volta or our assistance, or if any of these stories have scared you today, please don't hesitate to get in contact with us. Jeff, anything else to say?
No, everybody have a fantastic week and train your users.
Please. All right, everyone have a good week.
Take care, folks.
Trust Volta.